Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Champaign Room Hoops podcast. Joined again by Bill Cole and Brandon Paul. You can find them both on Twitter and Instagram at BP3 and BuckWildBill33. Thanks for joining us again, guys. What's been going on with you two lately?
No, nothing really. Just working and looking forward to this podcast and catching a lot of flack from all my Indiana connections after last night's game. So trying to stay off the phone, trying to stay offline until all my comments like Illinois by a million on the Beyond the Big Ten official Instagram I'm sure they're getting beat up right now. So just trying to stay offline today.
Yeah, I mean, that was rough. You hate to see a loss, but you hate to see a loss against IU. I'm just out here in Germany, still living the dream, traveling and enjoying myself while I still can. I'm 31. I feel like I'm 36 because the European years adds some time onto it. But, yeah, I'm enjoying myself.
Is that why you got the hat on?
Yeah, man, I need a haircut. It's rough. I need to fly my barber out here or something. It's rough. This guy cut my hair. Go ahead.
How do you watch the games from out there? What do? You stream them? How do you watch them?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's crazy. It's the craziest thing. It's a thing called a computer. And I have internet. And it helps me connect. No, I literally have logins for all of my friends' accounts. So like my boy records them on his Xfinity. I have a VPN, which is a virtual private network for the elder people watching this, which allows me to watch whatever I need to watch in Europe, Asia, wherever I'm at. It tricks your computer to making it think that it's back in the States. So I've been using the same one for about 10 years now. I'm not even going to plug it because I need that sponsorship. But yeah, I use Xfinity. I use YouTube TV. Shout out to my boy, Jeff Aronson. Shout out to Hisham. They got my login credentials, so I'm set.
15 minutes ago, pre-pod, we couldn't tell if you had it or not because it was like a shadow in our screen. So
I finally found a room with some decent lighting, and I'm literally in my hallway. And so I have some crazy kids that live in this building. If they wake up at any moment, we're gonna hear some yelling in the background. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
We'll roll with it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
All right, so let's tip it off. Illini, last time we talked, came off a big win versus Michigan State. First, we talked about them going on the road to Minnesota and try to take care of business. Previous pod, they kind of had that same situation where they had to go to Nebraska and kind of get sort of a business win. So we talked about them going to Minnesota after a big emotional win versus Michigan State, and they did just that. Went and handled their business at a place where we just kind of disagreed on easy to play, not easy to play. But I thought they put on a good performance versus Minnesota and did what they had to do to come out with a W.
Yeah, it was, it was just like you said, just a business trip, really. I thought it was similar to Nebraska vibes where they were just so much bigger and more athletic than Minnesota that all they really had to do was make a few shots, run a few sets, and then they just kind of saw the game out from there. I thought, they stuck, unlike Indiana, which we'll get into, they kind of stuck to running sets. You saw a lot of stuff for Terrence Shannon really early on. I thought that hurt Minnesota. I thought Dane Danger was really good again in the Minnesota game. So pretty much just your run-of-the-mill Minnesota victory. No one's going to get too hype about it. No one's going to get too analytical about what happened. I just think it was, in general, just better talent across the board that really, really showed through.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Bill, because if we lose that game, people definitely get hype about the loss. They start panicking, they hit the panic button, start talking about this, that, and the other. But, they showed up, they took care of business, they showed up to Minnesota with a chip on their shoulder. And I think any Big Ten win on the road that's damn near a 20-point win is impressive. And I saw Underwood go into his bench a little bit more. You got to see Brandon Lieb get in the game, and you can definitely tell he's been putting in the work because, you haven't seen him in a long time. But he came in, he knew what he was supposed to do, got some really good minutes out there. And I think that's something that Illini fans could be excited about, not only for the future of his career, but just the future of the team as far as going deeper into the rotation.
Yeah, just a quality win on the road in the Big Ten, which obviously doesn't come easy. Let's get into some of the X's and O's. And we're going to transition into the big one, which was Indiana last night, right? So we talked about these little 2-game stretches that the Illini have had the last few weeks where you got to get a quality win, and then you have a team like a Michigan State, Wisconsin, and this time it was Indiana coming into Champaign. That was kind of reeling a little bit. They had lost some games leading into this game, and so Illinois, Indiana is obviously, you both know, a humongous rival for the team, humongous rival for the fan bases. So it's a big deal. It's an emotional game, and I feel like we could name this pod the Trayce Jackson-Davis podcast, and just have it be a wrap. But that was just a shellacking. It was not a good performance. I'll get into a little bit of what I thought, as far as it kind of gave me some Northwestern game vibes as far as their approach and emotional state. But Bill, go ahead. What'd you see?
Yeah, I don't want to be too much of like the sky is falling, but I think the easy way to look at this team that would maybe give you less heart attacks if you're an Illinois fan is basically our ceiling is literally beat anyone in the country, and our floor is literally lose to anyone in the country. Especially when we're not hitting shots. And then, I mean, you touched on it. It's tough to even like sit here and opine on what happened in the game when literally Trayce Jackson-Davis basically made every shot he took. They had 50 some or almost 60 points in the paint. Indiana did. Their other power forward was also like 6 for 8 or something like that. So it was, if Underwood has forgotten more about coaching than I'll ever know. Like, let me preface this statement. But just the refusal to like double or full front Trayce Jackson-Davis, I could see if it was like a player where you were just like, oh, he's kind of playing out of his mind right now. He'll come back down to earth. But, this is like a McDonald's All-American NBA type guy, 13 points a game his freshman year. Like, this is a real big time player that started getting off on us. And it just seemed like they never changed. And Sam, we talked about this in Northwestern. Like, the defense didn't change until we were down 20 with 8 minutes left. And then they threw that press on there, and it was like instantly 2 turnovers just from changing up something a little. So I do have to question. And then after the game, he came out and said that Trayce Jackson-Davis' 35 wasn't what hurt him. And I'm like, yeah. I don't know. Someone's going to have to explain that to me. I'm sure he went with that whole, like, we're going to let him get his and nobody else can get off. I don't like that strategy. I've seen that not work too many times.
I mean, if you cut his production in half, it's a game, right? He came in, like you said, he barely missed. He got to the positions on the floor that he wanted to get to. And, Coach Brown did a great job with that, and he's a great player. And ironically enough, we take a look at the Illinois student section scouting report, and the first number on there is 23 Trayce Jackson, and it goes, a fun fact, has progressively gotten worse over the last 3 years. Maybe he got a hold of that scouting report and he took it personally because he came out and showed, why he is who he is. And we didn't have an answer for him. Like I said, he moved around on the floor where he wanted to. And I feel like if you control some of that, Bill, like you said, if you maybe throw a double his way, maybe send some guys to dig a little bit more and make them shoot more from the outside, it could be a different game. It could be a different game. So don't want to panic about it, but you hate to lose a game like that. You hate to lose to Indiana, especially with the type of rivalry we have. And I think they're up 95 to 91 in the entire series. And that hurts the soul, man. It hurts the soul. So,
yeah, Bill, to your comment, I watched Underwood's entire post-game presser, and I was, I too was questioning some of the things he said. Now, listen, like you prefaced it too. I mean, he's been doing this a long time, and he knows his team, and he knows how to handle the media, and I think he's great with the media. He's pretty brutally honest. But 2 themes I heard in the presser was one you brought up, Bill, about how like we're not worried about him getting 35. We want to make sure the others didn't get off. But I mean, it's college basketball, right? Like there's not 5 studs on every team. You usually have 1 or 2 at this level, 1 or 2 studs that you're going to gear up your scouting report to take them out of what they do and make it tough on them, and then try to let other players beat you. And maybe get out of their norm, that aren't used to having the ball in their hands, or aren't used to scoring, or aren't used to making plays. And I thought that was kind of weird, because I feel like Illinois did the opposite of that. It was like they directed, I mean, literally let Indiana just throw the ball into him, and he had very little resistance. I mean, Dane was on him most of the game one-on-one, and that's not an easy matchup for anybody. So I didn't see any double teams. He said in the presser that they did do it. I didn't notice it. He was just, I mean, 15 for 19 from the field. That's just, I mean, he had a game. I get it. Guys go off every once in a while, but I just didn't like the whole thought process and demeanor about it. And the other thing that he kept alluding to in the presser was about this whole 19 days straight that they've been playing, practicing, in some way, shape, or form have been doing basketball stuff. In other words, they haven't had a day off in 19 days. And he alluded to it like 5 or 6 times, and the media was kind of hammering him a little bit about it, which I get, right? I think he's being honest, is that because they looked like a dead team. They looked like a team that had no emotion, that had no energy, that we've seen the last handful of games. So I get it. I just, and he did give Indiana credit, which let's do that too. Let's give Indiana credit for the way they played, but I don't think it's so much about that as it is about how we didn't show up.
Yeah, I just keep thinking back to when teams can like we touched on it already when we talked about Minnesota. Like the teams, the Minnesotas, Nebraskas of the world, the teams that were just like, we are just much more athletically capable at every position. We just like roll over those teams. But like the Missouris of the world, the teams that can match us with quickness and jumping ability and speed on the wings,
switching,
we can absolutely take horrific shots against those teams because we don't get to the basket. And I just think that shot selection came back down. It was the prior 4 games was starting with Wisconsin was up to an A in my book, and now it was like straight back to an F last night. Someone's going to have to explain that to me as well, right? Like against Minnesota, they start out the game with like, it seemed like every time down they ran a set to get someone isolated. And this was back to where people were just dribbling, just pounding the air out of the rock on offense. And I thought just the shot selection was like we were back, 3 weeks ago. And I don't know. I didn't get that from an offensive perspective. And like I said, the defense, the game was so slow for Trace Jackson Davis. Like, I don't think people realize how hard that is to catch those balls in that position and like back to the basket and just score any which way. He even caught the one like with his like behind his head and reverse alley-ooped it. Like that's the type of flow that he was in. And just to like not, like you said, he almost put Danger on an island like for the whole night. Like just let him get exposed. And I don't know. I felt kind of bad for the kid because like, the first 5 times, like shame on me, but the last 5 times, shame on you. Like throw me some help. Like there are certain matchups. It's like when I was trying to guard Blake Griffin in AAU. It's like there's certain matchups you just can't do it physically, right? Like
punished you in that matchup.
I think he had 65 rebounds, and his brother Taylor Griffin was on the other block. I purposely fouled out in like 3 minutes.
Bro? He purposely fouled out.
I was doing everything. No, but I'm saying like throw Dane a little help. I think he just let him get. I mean, I don't know. That performance was wild to watch, just because it was like, all right, eventually you're gonna have to make someone else beat you, and it just every time the ball went into him, and every time he scored.
Yeah, I mean the kid is good. Obviously, you got to give credit to him, give credit to Indiana, give credit to the coach, and it doesn't help that we went 9 for 23 from the free throw line. And when guys go to the free throw line, there's just probably 3 or 4 guys on the roster where I'm like, okay, you can add 2 points to the board. Everyone else is kind of just like hit or miss, in a literal standpoint. And it was a lot of misses. Guys were coming in the game missing. So little stuff like that adds up, right? Little stuff like that adds up, especially when that game is going the way that it was going. That's something that can put you back in the game. You chop those misses in half, gives you a little bit more confidence when you look at the scoreboard, and instead of 15, it might say 11 or 10 or 9 just from hitting your free throws. And it just didn't seem a lot of stuff was going for the Illinois.
Yeah, the most frustrating thing for me watching, and Billy, there's really nobody to single out from last night because there's really not a lot to talk about as far as individual performances. But I feel like a recurring theme of this podcast since we've been on and we've been talking about Illinois' offensive struggles from game to game has been the, Bill, you said shot selection, and I've mentioned running sets and getting guys specific looks or putting them in specific positions or situations to be successful and play to their strengths. So, Bill, to your comment, I feel like Matt Meyer's a guy that we talked about a lot that struggled getting going early in the season, and then the last 3 weeks he's been awesome. He's been what I think that the staff and Illini fans and the team have wanted. He's gotten comfortable. He's gotten in more of a rhythm. He's clearly their best shooter. You feel good about it when it leaves his hand. And last night at one point in the first half, I don't know if it was like 2 or 3 minutes ago, I looked at the box score and he was 0 for 1 from the field. Now, to me, that just can't happen. Now, Underwood did say in his post-game presser that he was sick and not feeling well, but who cares, right? You're on the floor, so like, but that's like, to me is what you talk about offensively, right? Like, that kid should get 8 to 12 looks a game. He should get 4 to 6 shots off of a double, off of a triple where he's wide open, and the rest of it can come through the flow of the offense. But I just think it's unacceptable to have a player that's capable of scoring 20 to 25, which he's proven, a guy that's capable of getting hot and rattling off 3-4 threes in a row like he did versus Texas, to only have one shot. I think he finished the first half with 2 shots, and he finished the game 0 for 4, but it just doesn't, it's bizarre. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I think he also had a few really bad turnovers in the first half. It's just out of uncharacteristic for him. Let me switch that up. It was uncharacteristic of him in the first half to have all those turnovers, and then the fact that, like you said, he almost like has to go hunt his shots off the bounce.
And that's not his game.
No, I know he can do it. He did it at Madison Square Garden, and then kind of like the doors blew open,
bro.
and he was trying to do it every other game. And I think, like you said, like run him some pin downs, or like get him in an action, or let him come more natural. I don't know, but the old step back, shoot off the dribble, NBA range threes reared their head for a couple players last night, and they need like a shot collar on their necks. The second those guys start pounding the rock and not passing it from wing to wing, like they just need to like buzz them or zap them or something.
Man, I'm not gonna sit here and say I had the best shot selection in college, because I sure as shit didn't. But there's definitely a difference between bad shot selection and heat checks. And we get to a point where we come down and we're just, like you said, we're drilling the air out the ball and we just launch something. And I'll say it again, these kids are so talented. They're a lot more talented than a lot of us were at that age. And I still think there's a lot of basketball left, and I still think they're gonna for sure have a special season. But when you look at the games, I'm not kidding when I say this, and I need somebody who does stats to fact check this. I have never seen more air balls in a season more than I've seen this year. Like in my entire 4 years at Illinois, I don't think we airballed as much as they have this season. Like, it's crazy when you see the amount of air balls that go up. And it's not because these kids can't play. It's not because they can't shoot. It's shot selection. It's a little bit of confidence, and it's being able to put yourself in a position to be around your strengths. Like Terrence Shannon is a kid who's transitionally you can't really stop him, right? Downhill, you can't really stop him. He's gonna get to his left whenever he wants to get to his left, and sometimes he settles a little bit, and he hasn't developed a shot where it's like you're confident in him taking the 4 shots that he might take. And I feel for it. Sometimes you might get out of character just because of the way the game is going, but down the stretch, it's going to hurt them because there's going to be teams that are going to punish those types of misses,
And that's a great point, Brandon, because, a lot of teams, and Underwood is I think he's really good defensively, is, the old adage, defense creates offense. And that works a lot of the time. Especially for Terrence Shannon Jr., I feel like he gets a lot of his transition stuff and gets a lot of his rhythm in game sometimes off of his defense, which in turn makes you more comfortable in getting a rhythm as a team offensively. But when that doesn't work, right? When you're not in the passing lanes, when you're struggling defensively, you're struggling to get stops, like Brandon, like you said, later on in the season, when it's time to execute, I don't see it. And I don't know. I mean, you guys know in shoot around, when you have shoot around and you go through your scouting report and you prepare, you usually do like the first walk, first possession or two are scripted, right? Like offensively, you either have a set or you have a situation where you want to get someone a ball in a specific spot on the floor. Your first 1, 2, or 3 plays. And I'm not sure if that's the way teams do it or anymore or coaches do it, but I don't see any of it throughout a game. It's one thing if you go 8 minutes and it's helter-skelter and you can't get anything going and you can't get a rhythm. But even ATOs, after timeout situation, right? I don't see many sets run. I don't see, let's get Meyer a shot here. Let's get Terrence Shannon a free side, reject a ball screen, and get him in the free throw line. I don't see much of that. And it's frustrating because he's got weapons, right? We talk about it. I mean, I feel like every time, like Terrence Shannon went off early in the year, he had 25 last week. Dane played great for Michigan State. I feel like it was all self-imposed, like out of the flow of the offense. Those guys just went off, right? But you got 4 or 5 guys that can make plays and all do something a little different that can really, really, really make a defense adjust and have to think and have to try to stop you. I just don't see them using those weapons.
Yeah. I think you're dead on. One, Brandon touched on it earlier. I see the same exact thing. We do not push the ball. We don't create our own transition enough and like flatten the defense out, even if it's just a fake transition just to get the defense and allow some easy catches. Those first 10 possessions last night, we were catching the ball out near half court. And then and then next thing they look up and the shot clock's at 14 and you're panicking. And the second thing I noticed, I had to check my stats app in the middle of the game because I'm like, when they were firing up all those threes, I was like, I know we make a lot of threes per game as a team, but then I looked it up. We're 210th in the country in 3-point percentage. We do not shoot it at a good clip. We just take a lot of them, and we create a lot of possessions with our defense because our defense is top 12 in the country. So, there needs to come a point where it's almost like golf, right? I know Terrence Shannon is, all the reports are that he takes 400 threes a day, and he works harder than anyone. But there's a little bit where if you're working on your game on the course, right? If you're trying to prove that you can shoot threes in the middle of the game, I don't know that we want all of these guys doing that. And the key to that is if he can, then okay, then let's get him better shots. That's the key to everything.
Right.
That's a good point.
Brandon, for instance, I mean, you were obviously different. You were capable of going, especially end of a shot clock. You were capable of beating a defender and pretty much getting a shot that you wanted or a look that you wanted. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is somewhat capable of that, but there's still you were also at times, and you were put in a position to where you were coming off a screen or you were coming out off of Iverson cut. Yeah. Right. And you were catching the ball with the defense moving and shifting and then into a ball screen or something. You were still put in positions to make your life easier, right? And maybe get a high percentage shot or create something for your teammates.
Yeah, it was good to have, certain plays, certain screeners get me open. And it's like you said, players are going to make plays at the end of the day. But as a scorer, and sometimes you can say as a volume scorer, it makes the job a lot tougher when you're just trying to go out there and make a play every time. When you're trying to make a play when the offense breaks down, especially if the spacing is not there. Because I think their offense has been a lot better the last few games for sure, but sometimes the spacing is not there, and he's trying to go one-on-one, and there's help there, so he gets caught in positions where he doesn't necessarily. I can't put the blame on him. I can't put the blame on really anybody. It's just they got to figure it out.
I agree.
What are we doing for? When it's 10 seconds left, we need a bucket. What are we doing? Are we clearing a side? Are we giving a pick and roll with Dane in there, Coleman in there? There's too much moving around the arc where they're just kind of weaving it and they're not really making any progress. They're just kind of weaving it, and their teams are starting to switch. Teams are sitting back, and then they get pushed into a situation where they got to launch a three and hope that it goes in, hope that danger cleans it up. But I think this is going to come with film, watching film, going to come with a little bit more experience with this. And, like I said, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button, but there was definitely some things that we saw that made us a little uncomfortable. But I'm still excited about what this team is about to do, and hopefully they can watch this film and figure some things out.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's transition into scouting report. 4-4 in the Big Ten, right? So the sky is not falling, like you said, Bill and Brandon. It's not time to hit the panic button. They had a little bit of a letdown versus Indiana, which gave us some nightmares of how they looked versus Northwestern. But just like the Big Ten is, you turn right around now. Ohio State coming up. Now, Ohio State has lost 5 in a row. So they're having a really tough go of it in the Big Ten right now. And then to follow them is Wisconsin is waiting for us, just chomping at the bit, salivating in Madison to get back at us. So first, let's talk a little bit about Ohio State. We get some more home cooking Tuesday. A team that's lost 5 in a row, like I said, got to handle business this week.
Yeah, and we've all played there, right? This is going to be one of those games where this first 5 minutes is so important because the Illinois fan base, while I think they're tops in the country, they're also very verbal, and you will hear some groans. If you follow up that Indiana game with a shoddy first 10 minutes, and the Ohio State game looks a little sketchy, it's going to make everyone's tightness just ramp up a little more. So I really think my key to the game, if I was writing something on the whiteboard, would be fast start. Right, first 10 minutes. It just needs to look, and I think Brandon said one of the most important things we've said in all 4 episodes. Not everyone needs to be hunting or trying to take this game over, right? Let's see what happens in the natural flow of the offense. I think when we're playing our best basketball, in the way that we're going to match up with Ohio State, is like get the ball into danger, let them kick it back out, let the shots come naturally. And I just think it's kind of, for me, I don't know if it's a great thing to catch a team on an 0-5 skid. A team that's as talented as Ohio State, you want to talk about backs to the wall. That actually frightens me more than it excites me.
I mean, you said it just right there. That's exactly where I was going with it. This is one of those games where it's like Ohio State's in desperation mode. They need a win. They've lost 5 straight. They're going to come in and they've really got nothing to lose at this point. So again, it's a dangerous game to play in, and got to go with the mindset for us. It's another desperate game because we dropped one at home against Indiana. Good team. How well the team's going to play later on in the year, we don't know. But this is a game that you're supposed to win. Win the games you're supposed to win. Steal a couple games on the road. And I see this as one of the games you're supposed to win. You can't let them come and they can't build their confidence off of this game, right? Let them build their confidence off another game. We got to take care of this game and get ready because like you said, Sammy, we have Wisconsin waiting for us. So, and not a lot of teams go in there and win. Not a lot of teams go in there and outplay them, out-hustle them, out-tough them. And that's just how Wisconsin basketball is. But,
Do they still play with that janky ball up there?
Jeez, like the Wave or whatever it was, the Adidas. I don't know what that was, man. That ball was outrageous. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a point to make too is what you both just said about Ohio State coming in. It's a game you got to win. They're reeling. They lost 5 in a row. Like Bill, you said, that's dangerous. Like that's a desperate team that's probably going to come in feeling like they have nothing to lose, right? So that's scary. But I think that speaks to, this conference, right? Like it's a gauntlet. I mean, you go lose Indiana, you have to play Ohio State on Tuesday, then you got to go to a rematch at Wisconsin, who you just beat. Their best player just returned 2 games ago.
And it's fresh.
It just speaks to it just speaks to how tough this conference is day in, day out. And I think Tom Izzo talks a lot about, the gauntlet that it is. And you hear all these coaches in their post-game pressers. It's like, it's a grind, right? And I guess there's no better testament to see what these guys are made of than this week coming up.
Yeah, and that Wisconsin game looming afterwards, Tyler Wall's going to be back, I think, right? So,
yeah.
They were first or second with Purdue up until we played them when he was playing for them, and we all saw what they did with Kansas down in the Bahamas tournament. Like, so if he comes back and they click, I mean, I don't have to rehash what you just said. I mean, but you better have your head screwed on this next week, because it does not get any easier. It only gets tougher from here. And then you've got, Purdue eventually we haven't played yet. And they better have a plan for Edey, because he might be more of a load than Trace Jackson Davis is. And I don't know, that game's scary. I think they're a Final Four caliber type team. Yeah. So I think we're going to be all right. It's just, we're going to have to just one by one. I was taking these last couple as like 2-game sets, because you almost had to beat Nebraska to beat Michigan State. You almost had to beat Minnesota. And now I think the mindset shifts to like, whatever it takes, just squeak out a 1-point victory and move on to Wisconsin.
All right. Let's transition now to one of our favorite segments, Word on Campus.
Let's have a little fun.
Yeah, so we've had some fun with this over the last few episodes. The first one, obviously, we talked about Sky Clark. Last week, we got into our experiences with the media and how to handle that. This week, Brandon was nice enough to send out a tweet earlier to some Illinois fans and ask some questions that we could answer. So I'm just going to lead this and go on Twitter and look at Brandon's mentions and see what some of the people want to hear from you guys. Nobody's asked anything about me, which is great. So I think probably this segment's going to land a lot on Brandon. So I'm going to scroll through here. And Brandon, if there's anything you see that you want to talk about, let me know. But first thing here that jumps off the page, someone asked, what's the best thing you heard as a player from the student section, home or away? And I'll let you both touch on that.
Go ahead, Bill.
Oh man, I have two, so I'm going to make it quick, because I feel like these need to be heard by the world, and they've never been spoken about to this day here. So my freshman year, I rolled up to Michigan State, which is already kind of a scary experience, right? First time ever playing at the time was like, an absolute powerhouse college team, like maybe the best in the Big Ten at that time. And I walk into the Breslin Center, and their fans are a little different. Like when you get there 4 hours before the game,
they're there.
Their whole entire student section is there
waiting.
And I didn't realize this. Like, again, I'm like a few months out of high school at this point, and I didn't realize this, but they pass out a full-blown like FBI reconnaissance notebook on every player, their girlfriend's name, their sister's name, their family. And then I look over in the stands, they have blown up a full-blown poster board of me from prom night with my shirt off. And I'm,
we got to get that picture.
Yeah. And so I'm literally drunk as a skunk in the picture. There's, my prom date is there next to me. She's got some things going on that we won't mention in the picture. And they are just like hysterically laughing. It's like a 6-foot tall poster board. And I'm talking, it's 4 hours before the game. I don't think I even hit the rim in warm-ups. I was so fast. And so the worst part about it is, you think that, like, you're a freshman, you finally get through the game and you hit the bus and you kind of take that deep breath. No. They passed that picture down for 4 straight years. I remember them calling Coach McClain over when I walked out and was like, what is Bill doing in this picture? And he's looking at me and says, like, that's not you, is it? That was like the original when, like, that was early on in the Facebook days when you were like, oh shoot, I actually have to be like protective of who has access to my pictures, and people tagging me in prom night albums. And then the second one, sorry, I didn't speed it up like I said I would, but the second one I think is very timely because of the Indiana game last night. So I have a big contingency of Hoosiers in my family. So my brother went to IU when I was at Illinois. My cousin, my closest cousin, went to IU. They were both there. They were freshmen. They rushed a frat. And so my senior year, we go into Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Indiana, and it's like a real tough game, like good Indiana team my senior year, like Will Sheehy and those guys. And our game's super close. All of a sudden, timeout, we have the ball, we're down 1 with 3 seconds left, right? So if you've ever played at Assembly Hall, they might have one of the loudest fan bases. It is like
awesome.
super loud, and those dudes
right
are
on top
crazy.
of you too.
And so we get over to the timeout, and Bruce is like drawing up a play, right? And of course, he has me taking the ball out of bounds, sideline out of bounds to win the game. The shot was not coming to me. And Brandon and Dimitri, this is a side note, both come over to me on the way out of the huddle. They're like, throw me the ball. I'm going to make this shit. So now I'm already stressed out because you don't know, like, you're going to let one of them down, right? And then I walk over to the sideline to take it out. And first of all, the Indiana fans are sitting on the floor. And so the ref's about to hand me the ball, and they're like, the way that they're like boxing me in, they've literally taken away my angle to throw it to the corner. And keep in mind, I also have like a 6'8" dude jumping on me, like waving his arms. And there's like no chance I'm taking a 5-second call, right? So I'm going to throw it to the first person I see that gets open. Well, so I'm looking at the ref. I'm like, can you please scoot these fans back? I can't even throw it to the corner. And that's where like the play is. Right. So I'm trying to back up to give myself some space. All of a sudden, the ref hands me the ball, crunch time, need to make a play, need to make the right pass. My brother, unbeknownst to me at the time, I thought it was just a random fan. My brother's fraternity brother is one of the guys sitting courtside, sticks his finger in my ass. Like the second the ref hands me the ball, right? And so, but all I can see is the ref counting like this. And so I like look at the ref, I look at his hand counting, and I'm thinking in my brain, well, now that I've processed this finger in my ass, I've only got 2 seconds to throw it in. So thank God Dimitri like popped open, I threw him the ball and got the ball unbounded. He missed it, we lost, and the rest is history.
Oh,
but
that's unbelievable. I was going to guess Dimitri made a play.
No. I would have guessed it too. I would bet on Dimitri anytime. But Brandon, I'm sorry, but I threw it to the first person I saw. I was flustered.
It is what it is. He had the experience at the time, and like Sammy said, like he was definitely a walking bucket. So I think we all had to trust in him when he had the last shot.
To wrap it up, let's get back into the hoop segment of it. Coming off a tough loss versus Indiana, we mentioned it. 2 big ones, right? So got to take care of business at home versus Ohio State. It's not time by any means to hit the panic button. I think Bill said it best as far as those first 5 minutes of that game, you're going to see an emotional team come out that's going to be ready to play. But can they continue that for the next 35 minutes and continue to execute and get better and in the end go win that game because it's going to be a desperate Ohio State team. And then to follow that up is going to be Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin comes in. You squeak by them without their best player. Their best player's back. Got to go to Wisconsin, one of the toughest places to win in the Big Ten, and try and get that one too, and steal one on the road. Get one back that you just lost versus Indiana at home. So not time to hit the panic button, right? 4-4 in the Big Ten. A lot of basketball left to be played. And here's the other thing too, right? There's a whole Big Ten. Everybody beats each other up. I mean, you got Purdue right now that's 7-1, but other than that, I mean, it's pretty jumbled up, right? Anybody can beat anybody, so you just got to hang in there. You got to win the games you're supposed to win, and then go try to steal a few others that maybe necessarily you catch a team on a down night or something. So, both of you, thanks a lot for joining again. Having a lot of fun with this. I hope you two are as well. Stories are great. Analysis and perspectives from you guys are awesome. Again, at Buckwild Bill 33, Brandon's at BP3, Champaign Rune Hoops podcast. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks again for joining us.
Beyond the Big Ten is a network of podcasts that aims to be your go-to resource for all things Big Ten. We cover the entire conference with shows hosted by ex-players and athletic alumni, aiming to be your go-to source of information and entertainment for your favorite team. Hosted by ex-Big Ten players, media, and insiders, our podcasts are focused on giving diehard fans and those alums an inside scoop about the teams and people that make the Big Ten Conference one of the most watched and most talked about conferences in sports. We're excited to talk Big Ten basketball with you wherever you may be. Subscribe now.